Now let's talk corn today, otherwise known as maize. Recently, the global price of corn slumped to a record low of $177 per ton. But in Nigeria, we have seen a reverse movement with a price at a high of 580,000 per ton. 580,000 naira per ton now from 290,000 naira per ton at the beginning of the year. It's a huge leap. We're going to bring in Victoria Momo, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company, to break it down for us. Good afternoon, Victoria. Good to have you, but not good news. Why has the corn price in Nigeria doubled compared to global prices, even using the parallel market rates?
Thank you very much for your question. So I would say that the exchange rate has a role to play in that increase or spike in the price of corn, the exchange rate depreciation. The parallel market rate has been declining, has been depreciating for a while, and we've seen a significant depreciation of about 32%, in the last 1 year, and that is due to the fact that we're having the issues of forex, supply shortage, and is affecting various commodities that are being imported into the country. But apart from the increase in the domestic price of corn, which is of course triggered by the exchange rate depreciation, we also have some domestic challenges that are driving that spike in the price of the commodity, and one of which is actually the fact that we are having these logistic challenges, the spike in logistics costs, because where these commodities or the corn is actually being produced is mostly in the northern side, and of course the northern states, the distance between the northern states and where it is being needed, the difference between the cost of transportation between the northern regions and where the places are being, like for example Lagos State, there is a spike in the cost of transportation, and that is due to the fact that energy prices have increased. There is also the aspect of infrastructural challenges, which has led to the supply shortfall of corn in the country, and that is also driving the prices of the commodity. Most of this corn production is actually done by small-scale farmers, and there is actually significant post-harvest losses that are actually about 30% of post-harvest losses that are being gotten in a year due to the fact that there is poor storage facilities for this corn. So because of this supply shortfall, we've seen this filter into the domestic prices of the commodity. So one, the global prices is actually declining, but we're not seeing that reflect in the domestic prices, and that is because of the domestic challenges that we're currently facing in Nigeria. And the worst part of it is that the poultry farmers are actually worse hit, because 45% of maize that is produced in Nigeria are actually used in the production of animal feed, and that is actually weighing on their cost of production. And we've seen many poultry farmers actually shutting down because of their inability to sustain production. And don't forget that there is also the aspect of declining demand for eggs and chickens and the likes of it, because consumers are basically squeezed currently.
I hear all you've said, Victoria. Quite not very good news for most people, most Nigerians, especially people who eat corn or use corn as a base for most of their meals. But we're getting that report from the Economic Intelligence Unit, that's the EIU, saying that they're saying that there will be a gradual decrease in the average maize export prices throughout 2023 and 2024. They see easing in prices here. But with all you've said, would there be any impact at all in the domestic prices of corn in Nigeria? Would that be reflected if prices keep declining? Would we see that reflected in our domestic prices? What with our rates of inflation?
So basically, the EIU predicts that prices would ease through this year and into next year, and that is due to the fact that there will be ample supply from the major corn-producing countries like the US and Brazil, amid subdued demand for the commodity in the global market. But is this decline in price actually going to reflect here in Nigeria? To some extent, yes. And that is due to the fact that, okay, recently we've actually seen that the CBN has, removed the import ban, the import restriction. There are 43 items of commodities that are actually being restricted from, accessing forex, and maize is one of them. So now that this restriction has actually been removed, we'll most likely see that the importers of these commodities would be able to, have access to importing these commodities from the global market. So when there is an increase in, commodity, the importation of corn into the country, we would see that reflect in the domestic prices of the commodity. And why do I say that? Because importing this commodity into Nigeria is relatively cheaper, compared to the, getting it from the domestic market. And if you compare the domestic price of the commodity in dollar terms, using approximately 1,200 naira per dollar, you would see that the price of corn is currently being sold at 438 naira, $438 per ton, as opposed to the global market price of $177 per ton. So this difference between the prices would actually encourage the importers to go towards the global market to get this commodity, and then it would reduce the competitiveness of the global commodity price with the international price, and then this would affect the domestic producers of corn and also weigh on their profitability. Recently we also heard that there are issues of cash scarcity that is coming up, and this is basically going to hurt the demand for corn and other commodities, because the producers, like I said earlier, or the farmers that actually produce corn are actually small scale farmers, and what they do basically are cash transactions, and most of them are unbanked. So as a result of that particular cash transaction, and or we could see a subdued demand for this commodity, and this would affect the profitability of the demand of the domestic farmers.
Just very quickly, Victoria, just give us a very brief outlook here, especially with last month we saw NNPC Limited saying they're planning to produce cleaner fuel such as ethanol from corn and sugarcane. Where we are, they even signed an MOU with the Niger State government, but where we at in terms of production, how realistic is this? If we aim to produce fuel, do we have enough production, corn production, to be able to meet these goal or objective?
So basically here in Nigeria, we still have a huge supply gap of corn production in Nigeria, and that is due to the fact that we do not have sufficient corn to meet with our local demand. So as a result of that, we have a supply deficit of about 1 million metric ton, and we meet that supply deficit by actually importing this corn into the country. So there is that challenge of domestic production of corn. So now that we use that corn is actually one of the products that is used to make ethanol, we can see that realizing that particular goal of increasing production of ethanol would actually most likely be unrealistic to some extent, except the issue of corn production is actually being addressed in the country, and that is by ensuring that there is proper infrastructural facilities to keep to preserve this corn, and in order to improve the yields of corn, and then the aspect of ensuring that farmers are incentivized and also financed in order to increase the production of corn in the country. So once this is actually addressed, we'll see that there will be an improvement in corn production in Nigeria, and that would filter into the use of corn for other of corn derivatives like ethanol, and even animal feeds and other confectionaries.
Victoria Momo, I do know you have a lot to say about that. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on Business Incorporated. Victoria Momo, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.